By the time dessert was served, I had already counted 17 times my wife laughed at another man's jokes. Not that I was keeping score. After 21 years of marriage, I never thought I'd find myself sitting alone at a table while my wife, Rachel, acted like I had disappeared. We were attending a charity gala hosted by one of her coworkers, and from the moment we arrived, she had practically attached herself to a younger executive named Brandon Hayes. Every time I tried joining the conversation, she would drift away with him again. By 10 o'clock, I had become nothing more than a coat rack holding her purse. Around me, people laughed, danced, and enjoyed themselves. Meanwhile, I sat alone wondering when exactly I had become invisible in my own marriage. What hurt wasn't that Brandon was handsome or successful. It was how easily Rachel dismissed me. At one point, I walked over to ask if she'd like another drink, and she barely looked in my direction. "Later, honey," she said while smiling at Brandon. "We're talking." The word "we" hit me harder than I expected. Throughout the evening, several guests gave me sympathetic looks. Some even tried making conversation out of pity. I smiled politely and pretended not to notice. But deep inside, something was breaking. 21 years of memories. 21 years of loyalty. And somehow, I had become background noise while another man occupied center stage. Then came the speech. The host asked everyone to raise their glasses and say a few words about friendship and love. Brandon, clearly enjoying the attention, grabbed the microphone. "I'd like to thank Rachel," he announced with a grin. "She's been the highlight of my evening." The room laughed and applauded. Rachel blushed like a schoolgirl. Then Brandon looked at me and smirked. "Sorry, buddy," he joked. "I borrowed your wife for the night." More laughter followed. Rachel laughed too. That was the moment something inside me quietly changed. Not anger, not jealousy, acceptance. I stood up slowly and asked the host if I could say something. The room grew quiet as I walked toward the microphone. Rachel's smile faded slightly. Brandon still looked amused. Taking a deep breath, I smiled warmly. "I'd like to thank Brandon," I began. The crowd chuckled, expecting another joke. Because tonight, he gave me something I didn't know I needed. Confused faces appeared around the room. Rachel stared at me nervously. For 21 years, I've tried to convince myself that love alone was enough. Tonight, I realized respect matters too. Suddenly, nobody was laughing. The room became so quiet I could hear glasses being placed on tables. I turned toward Rachel and smiled sadly. "Honey, I spent the entire evening watching you smile at another man while treating me like a stranger. And honestly, Brandon didn't embarrass me. You did." Several guests lowered their eyes. Others looked shocked. Rachel's face turned pale. "David," she whispered. But I raised my hand gently. No anger. No drama. I just wanted to thank everyone for helping me see something I've been ignoring for a long time. Then I placed the microphone on the stand and quietly walked away. Behind me, nobody spoke. The silence was louder than any argument could have been. According to friends, chaos erupted moments after I left. Rachel burst into tears and ran outside searching for me. Brandon stood awkwardly in the corner, looking like he wanted to disappear. Guests who had laughed earlier suddenly avoided eye contact. The mood of the party collapsed completely. Several people left early. Others quietly criticized Rachel for how she'd treated me. Apparently, one woman even told her, "You spent all night acting single. What did you expect?" By the time Rachel reached the parking lot, my car was already gone. For the first time all evening, she understood what being ignored actually felt like. When I arrived home, I packed a suitcase and drove to my brother's lake house. I turned off my phone and spent the next 2 days fishing and thinking. Peace replaced sadness. Then curiosity got the better of me, and I finally turned my phone back on. 112 missed calls. Dozens of voicemails. Rachel cried through nearly every message. "Please answer," she begged. I was stupid. I was showing off. I never meant to hurt you. But intentions mean very little when the damage is already done. And regret has a cruel way of arriving after consequences. A week later, I agreed to meet her. Gone was the confident woman from the party. Sitting across from me was someone completely broken. Through tears, Rachel admitted she'd enjoyed the attention and had become addicted to feeling admired. "I wasn't trying to replace you," she whispered. "I just forgot how much I was hurting you." Looking into her eyes, I saw genuine shame. Not excuses. Not blame. Real shame. For the first time in years, she understood that loyalty isn't something you assume. It's something you protect. Over the following year, Rachel fought harder for our marriage than she had in decades. Counseling followed. Difficult conversations followed. So did honesty. One evening, I noticed something framed above her desk. It was a photograph from the gala. She had drawn a black line through Brandon's face. Beneath the picture, she'd written 5 words. "The night I almost lost everything." Looking at her, I realized pain had changed her in ways comfort never could. People rarely grow when life is easy. They grow when consequences force them to confront themselves. Last month, Rachel and I celebrated our 23rd anniversary on a quiet beach in Hawaii. As the sun disappeared beneath the horizon, she rested her head on my shoulder and whispered, "Thank you for not giving up on me." I smiled softly. "Thank you for finally seeing me." Looking back, I learned something important. Sometimes, people don't realize you're hurting because you've become too good at hiding it. And sometimes, the most powerful words you'll ever speak aren't shouted in anger. They're spoken calmly right before an entire room falls silent.